Hello, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Paranormal Minds. I'm your host, Shannon Ray, and I just lost Lyle via my telephone. It dropped right when we came live. So I'll be right back. I'm going to get Lyle back. Don't move. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. I have Lyle Blackburn back on the phone. I don't know if it was my cell phone or his, but I want to tell you a little bit about Lyle before I bring him on. Lyle Blackburn is an author, musician, and cryptozoologist from Texas. He investigates cryptozoology books. The Beast of Boggy Creek and Lizard Man reflect his lifelong fascination with legends, lore, and citing reports of real-life monsters. During his research, Lyle has often explored the remote reaches of the southern U.S. in search of shadowy creatures said to inhabit the dense backwoods and swamplands of these areas. Lyle is also a staff writer and cryptozoology advisor for RUE MORGUE. No, I don't know if I said that right. He can correct me. Magazine, one of the leading horror media productions in print today. In addition, Lyle is the founder and frontman, and this is still going off, and frontman of the rock band Ghoultown from 1998 to 2012. Ghoultown released 8 albums, toured extensively in both the U.S. and Europe, appeared on several horror movie soundtracks, and was featured on the syndicated television show Elvira's movies. Macabre. I don't know if it's that right either. Lyle is now featured speaker at cryptozoology and horror conferences around North America. He has been heard on numerous radio programs, including Coast to Coast, and has appeared on television shows such as Monsters and Mysteries in America and the CBS Sunday Morning Show. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Lyle. Lyle, I hope I didn't lose you again. Oh, no. Lyle, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I was like, sorry. I hope I didn't lose him, again.
No, I muted that because I was having a party, and so
I
had to unmute.
Yeah, well, as long as you're muting me, because, that's the biggest thing, is I can't mute you. So,
yeah, all good.
Well, I wanted to start off by asking you, just kind of a general question, what kind of originally sparked your interest in the paranormal field?
Well, when I was young, as far back as I can remember, I was always fascinated by tales of monsters, so to speak, real-life monsters like Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, Yeti, things like that. And, just like any kid, I read a lot of books and watched documentaries. And, as I grew older, I just, I kind of, became a musician, so I was kind of, not actively investigating these sort of things, but later on, just by happenstance, I started going to some Bigfoot conferences and things like that, and really realized how much research people were doing, with that sort of thing, and I just sort of got into it, and one thing led to another, and I started writing books, and I guess, now I'm just fully into cryptozoology.
Yeah, now, why the field of cryptozoology and monsters, so to speak? I know that, a lot of people in the paranormal field, when they kind of start with ghosts, so to speak, they, have some kind of experience. Why did you kind of navigate more towards crypto?
Well, I think it was a combination of a couple things. When I was young, of course, I loved ghosts and ghost stories, and, I was into anything that was just weird and unexplained, UFOs and everything. But I particularly was fascinated by things that were more in the outdoors, in the woods, because I grew up as a hunter. My father is an avid bow hunter, and we hunted all over Texas and camped throughout Texas and Arkansas and places like that. So I was always just sort of an outdoors kind of person, and I was also I just loved monsters, I guess, and so while I love ghosts and love a good ghost story and all that, haunted houses and everything like that, it's as far as research, I just kind of gravitated towards the cryptozoology, I guess, because there's a variety of creatures and variety of locations, and it put me in the outdoors.
And, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I do want to talk about the Beast of Boggy Creek, but before we talk about that, I actually have this YouTube video that kind of talks about the Beast of Boggy Creek that I pulled from one of your websites, and I do want to go ahead and play that for our viewers. So all you guys sit back, relax, and watch this information about the Beast of Boggy Creek, and we will be right back.
For more than a century, reports of a strange beast known as the Fouke Monster have circulated among the locals in southern Arkansas. Described as a large, hairy, man-like creature with a foul stench, it's said to haunt the vast Sulphur River bottoms as it travels the secluded waterway known as Boggy Creek. Over the years, the creature has been seen by numerous witnesses near the town of Fouke, including respected citizens, experienced hunters, famous musicians, and even a police officer. In one instance, it was said to have attacked a local family, earning the beast a reputation for being aggressive and dangerous. As sightings became prominent in the 1970s, rewards were posted. Hundreds of hunters poured into Fouke, hoping to get a shot at the mysterious beast. The events even inspired a classic horror movie, The Legend of Boggy Creek, by Charles Pierce. But don't think the Fouke Monster is merely a dated Hollywood legend. Around Fouke, the sightings never stopped, and they still continue right up until today, some of them more incredible than those that launched the creature to fame more than 40 years ago. Now, for the first time, the complete chronological history of the Fouke Monster has been assembled in one book, The Beast of Boggy Creek, The True Story of the Fouke Monster. This book collects all the facts, theories, and amazing sighting reports and weaves them into a narrative that will keep you turning the page. Get your copy today and join me, author Lyle Blackburn, as I explore the history of this fascinating southern legend. The truth may be stranger than we think.
Okay, and we're back with Lyle. Lyle, you there?
I'm here.
Woohoo! Do you get weirded out hearing yourself? I get weirded out hearing myself all the time.
Yeah, I suppose, but after so many years, I've been a singer for a rock band and, been on the TV thing, so at this point, it is what it is.
Yeah, you're kind of a professional at it. So, what kind of made you aware of the Beast of Boggy Creek? How did it get brought to your attention?
When I was a kid, back sometime in the 70s, my parents thought it'd be a good idea to take me to the drive-in theater to see the movie The Legend of Boggy Creek, and that was released in 1972. And it was basically a film that it looked a lot like a documentary. It was kind of the predecessor to movies like Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity, but literally back in 1972. So it really frightened people. It looked so real, and I remember seeing the movie and thinking, wow, this is a Bigfoot creature that's said to live in Arkansas, and this was just across the border from where I lived in Texas. And so up until then, I just knew Bigfoot lived in Northern California and Oregon and Washington and places like that. I didn't really understand that there was also Bigfoot sightings around here. So that was the first time it came to my attention, and it was just a movie that I loved, and I've watched it over and over throughout the years. And as I started getting into writing about cryptozoologic subjects, one of the first things I did was to try to figure out, what the movie was based on, because the tagline is a true story. So naturally, I wanted to find out just what was true about it and what wasn't, and that's just kind of what set me on the road to write that book.
So, some might say, okay, in the unexplored parts of the world, maybe some type of creatures might not have been identified to exist, but not in the USA. Talking about skeptics here, Lyle. How could a creature like this go for so long without being noticed or, scientifically documented within the United States?
Well, I mean, it certainly sounds improbable and, nearly impossible. So, I mean, it's natural to be skeptical of these type of things because at this point, the woodland areas are disappearing, and we do have technology that allows us to, penetrate more and more areas. But it isn't completely out of the realm of possibility that, in some parts of the country, some highly intelligent, highly skilled, evasive ape could have managed to remain hidden this long. I mean, there are, large tracts of land in places that are uninhabitable. Boggy Creek, for example, is, basically on the edge of a very remote and rugged swampland where there's really no, houses, no civilization. You can't really build or develop there. So there are areas like that where provide a pocket where an animal like this could exist. And obviously, evidence is sketchy, but there is evidence, and it's just something that a person like myself that's interested in these mysteries, I keep trying to pursue it, to see what I make can turn up.
Yeah. Now, what do you personally believe to be the evolution of this creature?
Well, I mean, I just kind of start at a basic level that until proven different, the creature is just some sort of flesh and blood biological animal. It's, a relic ape of some sort. It's, doesn't necessarily have supernatural powers or things like that. Obviously, these creatures can do miraculous things and can disappear into the woods quickly, but other animals can also do that. And by virtue of many sightings that I've looked into, the creatures can move very quickly. So, they're just highly adapted primates as far as I can tell. But, obviously, until there's a body, it's all just conjecture.
So let's, for the sake of this thing has gone and it's gone without being discovered. So do you believe that the fact that it has gone for so long without being discovered, that it's almost an intelligent act of invasiveness to remain hidden on its behalf?
I think logically it would have to be. You would have to give it the benefit of the doubt when it comes to intelligence and, its basic skills at remaining elusive, because there's just no way that it could have dumbed its way, into remaining hidden this long. People do have sightings, and there are footprints found, and there are, there is hair and things like that have been found, but it's few and far between, really, if you look at it. And I would definitely think that these creatures would have to be highly intelligent. There's really no way about it, any way around it, to have remained undocumented this long.
Are there any similarities between this creature and typical Bigfoot accounts? Would you go so far as to say, like, this is, either a branch or a same subspecies of a Bigfoot?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the basic sense of the descriptions, it does fall into the category of Bigfoot. And I mean, I call it the Southern Sasquatch. I mean, it's described as being 7 foot tall, covered in hair. The hair color is from black to dark brown to red, and often said to have a foul odor associated with it. So, given that, I mean, that basically falls into the description of Bigfoot. Some differences. A lot of the southern Bigfoot encounters show some aggression by the creatures. Some people say that they have 3 toes. There's definitely been 3-toed tracks found from time to time. So if the creature it truly exists, then I suppose it would be something that's, changed a little bit due to its environment, as opposed to a Bigfoot that lives in the Pacific Northwest, where it's colder, it's more mountainous. If you've got a creature living down here in a hot, muggy swamp, it could explain some of the differences, or obviously the behavior. I always say that if I was covered in hair and lived in a muggy swamp, then I'd be kind of aggressive and pissed off too,
Yeah, absolutely. So, from the book and the accounts that you took, can you take a moment to identify one that you believe is the most exciting or either the most compelling about the creature or at Boggy Creek?
Sure. Let's think. There's been so many sightings. I've researched and spoken to first-hand witnesses in a lot of accounts. One in particular that I thought was good was one that in which the creature was seen by 6 people at one time, and I was able to locate and interview 2 of the witnesses in this case. And this occurred in 1991, and there was 5 guys in one car, and they were driving in one direction, and there was a truck with a truck driver coming the other direction. And it was about 11 p.m. at night, and it was fairly clear outside, and the location of this is in near a bayou called McKinney Bayou, which is in southern Arkansas, and it's in the vicinity of where the Falcon Monster, the Boggy Creek Monster, has been sighted many times over the history of the years. And as these guys were approaching, they saw something walk up out of the woods and walk up into the road. So the cars were converging, so they were slowing down, and they could see it, silhouetted there in the headlights. And by 1991, people who lived in that area had certainly heard of the creature and were well aware of the legend of Boggy Creek and all that. So the guys in the car were thinking, man, what is this? Could this really be the Falcon Monster? Oh, no, it couldn't be. It's probably just a man. But as they got closer, they could see that it wasn't a man. It was something larger. It was covered in hair. It was very bulky. And obviously they could see it in the headlights. So they slowed down. The truck that was coming the other direction slowed down. And finally, the creature just walked across the road and started heading off into a field. So they all got out of the car and, tried to watch it, but it just quickly disappeared into the darkness. And so this trucker got out, and he wasn't from the area, and he's like, what the hell was that, And they said, well, have you ever heard of the legend of Boggy Creek? And he said no, and so they proceeded to tell him about the creature and all that, and of course he was pretty freaked out and just left the scene. But I think it's a credible sighting in that I was able to interview 2 of these guys, and I'll go into detail in my Beast of Boggy Creek book about this. But that's just one of many sightings, and some of these where it had been seen by multiple people at one time.
And here this is just kind of like an off-the-wall random question, Lyle, but this, especially like with the Beast of Boggy Creek and a lot of Bigfoot sightings that happen like in the southern United States, it always just crosses into my mind that, when at some point is, one of these creatures going to come across one of these southern gun-toting citizens that, is just going to get off a shot and hit them finally, because, that right there would be imposing and super scary. And I just know like a lot of men and people carry guns in their car and stuff like that. And so that's the one thing that just kind of alludes to me is, how come nobody's gotten off a shot at them or even tried,
Well, there have been a lot of guys that have shot at it. There's a lot of accounts, especially back in like the 50s, in which people were confronted by this thing down in the woods, and they actually did try to shoot at it. There's a lot of factors as to why, they haven't dropped one, but, you really would need a high-powered rifle. You would need a good shot. Back in the 50s, if you're shooting at a large, bulky animal that's covered in thick, coarse hair, you would have to be using the right rounds in your gun and shooting with the right gun. And a lot of times these encounters were quick. They were in the dark. Maybe they did hit it, or but you got to hit it. A large animal like that, it's like a bear. If you just hit it in the arm or some other place with a round that's not correct for that to penetrate that animal, it's not going to do much to them. And I think that'd be the same case here. On the as well, there have been a lot of hunters who have seen this or have seen Bigfoot in general, and people always say, well, if these things are real, then hunters would see it and they would shoot them. Well, the thing about that is, and I've heard this in so many accounts where hunters have seen this creature, a Bigfoot or whatever, and they just in their mind they were going to shoot it, but as they looked at it through the scope or something else, they just couldn't do it. And usually they would say it just looked too human. It looked man-like in some way, and I just didn't want to shoot it. I mean, there was a chance it could be a person in a suit. It looked so human-like. So in a lot of cases, hunters may feel like, well, I'm going to take that sucker down if I see it. But when you're in there in the time and place and you happen to have one of these encounters, it's probably not what you expect, and you may, just choose not to shoot it. So, I don't know.
Yeah, and I would agree with that too. And it's, to me, a possible idea would also be the fact that fear takes over. Seeing something that you've never confronted before, by the time it's gone, or, without it's outside of shooting range, by the time you get your wits back about you.
Right. I mean, and what if you take a shot at it and you hit it in the arm and you nearly make it mad? I mean, this is not a creature that you can predict its reaction. And if you're face to face with something like that in the woods, there's only so many people that are just going to throw caution to the wind and take shots at this thing and hope they kill it. Because if you don't, obviously, your own life is in danger.
Yeah, and it could absolutely attack you without a doubt. Alrighty, so switching gears from the Beast of Boggy Creek onto Lizard Man. And let me go ahead and swap the images so we can bring up the Lizard Man. Lyle, and also I have not mentioned this, but it's been on your screen throughout the night. Lyle's website is www.lyleblackburn.com. It's a great website. That's where I've gotten all these images and everything else, this video that he made and everything. So you are more than welcome to go and check it out, and you can purchase the books through his website as well. Isn't that correct, Lyle?
Yes, definitely. Okay. There's links there to, to wherever you want to purchase it. It's available at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com and, all those places.
Or you can just go to his website and check out all the coolness and then buy it from his website. There you go. Alrighty, so switching back to Lizard Man. Can you kind of take a moment to explain how you became aware of the Lizard Man and the kind of backstory behind it a little bit?
Well, the Lizard Man is one of in the case of the Bishopville Lizard Man in particular, it's kind of one of those famous cryptozoology cases. It's been written about and talked about over the years. And the basic origin of this story is in 1988, down in Bishopville, South Carolina, which is located kind of in the central part of South Carolina. The sheriff's office down there got a call from some people who live near an area called Skateboard Swamp, and their car had been apparently mauled by some sort of an animal, and they didn't know what to make of it, so they called the sheriff and had him come out there. Well, the deputies go out there, and they found it to be very strange. They weren't sure what to make of it, so they called the sheriff, and he went out there, and sure enough, it appeared that this car was scratched and clawed up. There was evidence of footprints and other things. It appeared that an animal had done something. So in the process of investigating this, some of the locals came up and said, well, maybe it was the Lizard Man. And the sheriff's like, what do you mean, a Lizard Man? And they explained that some people in the area had been seeing a large 7-foot upright creature that was either brownish or greenish, and they had given it the name the Lizard Man. Now, the police were pretty dubious about this, so they said, well, fine, you tell anybody that's had a sighting of this Lizard Man to come down and see us. Nobody's in trouble. We just want to know more about this. And so it wasn't long before a young man named Christopher Davis showed up at the sheriff's office with his father, and his father said, my son's got a story to tell you, and I think it might have to do with this car damage and this creature people call the Lizard Man. And so basically Christopher Davis had been driving by Skateboard Swamp one night, had a flat tire, and was basically almost attacked by this creature, whatever it was. And he was fairly convincing in what he told the police. The sheriff believed the story, and that kind of launched an investigation into this whole thing back in the summer of 1988. And there was subsequent sightings of it and things like that. So basically, I did what I did with the Beast of Boggy Creek. It's a story that has been told and you read about over and over, and lizard men are fairly intriguing type of cryptids. So I went out to Bishopville, South Carolina, interviewed a lot of people, looked at police records and documents and police files and all of it, and pieced together the story of just what happened with the lizard man, which was really a fascinating case.
Well, and here's a question that I have to you, Lyle, and if at any point I'm kind of incorrect, can you can change my direction. But of all the Bigfoot and different kind of crypto sightings that I've came across and heard and interviewed with different people with different accounts, very rarely do you find any kind of police involvement. And that's one thing that interested me about this whole lizard man concept, was that the actual local authority was involved in the investigation of this actual creature.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one thing that I thought was great about this case, because the sheriff there, he's retired now, Liston Truesdale, took it seriously in that he believed that something was going on. I mean, he didn't know, whether it was a lizard man or it could have been a person, but the fact that this kid came in there and said something tried to attack him, and other people said they had seen it, something had happened to that car, they thought, we got to look into it, because sure enough, if we just blow it off and somebody ends up getting hurt, everybody's going to say, well, why didn't you follow up? So they really had their hands tied. But there was enough credible evidence, and they felt like, they subjected this kid to polygraph tests and things like that, and they felt like he was telling the truth. And so, yeah, they did actually do some pretty good police work, and one family had seen the creature in the early 90s, and he had sheriff had him come in there and write down everything they had seen. He separated the witnesses, and they documented their sighting, and just like you would with any, police case investigation. So it was great to have access to these police documents that told the story and recorded what the witnesses had seen, the day before. It's not me, interviewing somebody 30 years later. It's literally, I'm looking at the statements from these people that had been taken by the police. So yeah, it was just amazing how this all played out.
So besides Bishopville, South Carolina, has there been any reports of any other creature within the USA that you're aware of that would fit with this lizard man, that maybe would support that it's not just a single phenomenon or occurrence?
Yeah, there are other reports of so-called reptilian humanoids or scaly, upright, bipedal creatures of some sort. And while there's definitely not as many as there are Bigfoot sightings and things like that, there's certainly a number of them that are interesting. And in my book, I kind of go into those just to kind of compare and contrast to answer that exact question. Can we see any similarities in the other cases when compared to this one? But just off the cuff, there was a sighting in Riverside, California, in 1958. A man described a creature kind of along the lines of a creature from the Black Lagoon type of a thing. It was kind of generally a lizard man type creature. There was sightings in 1970s at Thetis Lake in British Columbia, where they saw a creature now known as the Thetis Lake Monster, and it was something that kind of came out of the water. There was some incidents along the Ohio River. There was some in New Jersey. Of course, Florida has legends of something called the Gator Men, things like that. So, you do see this reptilian thread running through a lot of cryptids. Unfortunately, there's just not as much evidence for these other ones as there is the Bishopville lizard man, but they're certainly, all very interesting.
Now, when the police police, or the sheriff, I should say, when they did their investigation there, were they able to come up with any kind of concrete scientific evidence that would support, the existence of, some type of creature that had, unidentifiable, even DNA?
Well, not directly connected to sightings of the creature. In 1988, at that point, the creature, when it allegedly attacked Christopher Davis, it did scratch up his collar and things like that, but they weren't really able to take DNA. It was just, too complicated and expensive back at that point to extract for an alleged monster sighting. There were some footprints that were found, but those turned out to be not legit, so to speak. So that didn't help them any. They were just basically had to go by, sighting reports for the most part. Now, you did have the cars, and the incidents down there near Skateboard Swamp with these cars being damaged and mauled by animals has actually continued all the way up until today. I mean, it was nearly 30 years later, there was another case. And in these cases, in modern times, they did actually take some DNA, but the DNA in one case came back saying it was canine. But of course, really, these cars, there's no direct connection that they were done by the same creature as people were citing, because nobody ever actually saw any animal mauling the cars. They just found the cars torn up. So it's either highly coincidental, and it's kind of spooky that's all happening at the same time, but there really wasn't any hard evidence of anything.
So this case drew national attention to the little small town of Bishopville. Since you were there to complete this book and you did on-site interviews, has this case changed the town in any way?
Yeah, I think it has. I mean, it's not been extremely significant, but I mean, some of the local businesses there. There's a restaurant that has the tagline "Home of the Lizard Man." If you go in there, you can order a Lizard Man sandwich. There's the South Carolina Cotton Museum, which is located in Bishopville, and they actually have a little section in the museum where you can see some Lizard Man memorabilia. You can see some track castings and things that have been taken back in 1988. So, the town is aware of this. They have a little cotton festival, and their mascot is the Lizard Man. So they've kind of embraced it somewhat. It's not to the extent like it is in Falk, Arkansas, where Boggy Creek is. Now, that's much more, that town has really embraced it. I mean, the mayor has, just tried to preserve the history and the legend of that. So when you have these cryptids that turn up in these small towns, it certainly changes the town forevermore. I mean, you can't search Bishopville, South Carolina without the Lizard Man popping up. So there's no way, no way they can ever shake that reputation. But in different cases, it just depends on how the town, chooses to view it.
Now, my question to you is about, the Lizard Man, kind of along the same lines as the one of the Beast of Boggy Creek. What do you believe could be the evolutionary tract of an animal or a creature like this?
Well, that's a much more complex notion, definitely. I mean, because if this is truly any sort of creature that would be a hybrid between reptile and human, or just any kind of reptilian that's anthropomorphic, human-like, that's very biologically improbable. So in my book, I kind of cover the general theories that people have proposed, and one of those being that if some dinosaurs or a dinosaur had managed to not go extinct, that over time they may have developed a more anthropomorphic body and look more human-like. And, this could possibly explain sightings of creatures like this. But again, that's taking a huge leap, because that's saying that these creatures would have to survive the cataclysmic extinction, in order to evolve. The evolution part makes sense, but could they have survived? Other theories include that these creatures are part of some sort of a larger network of reptilian humanoids that live in caverns below us, in caves below the earth, subterranean reptilians, and all that gets into a lot of conjecture. Personally, when I analyzed the statements from the witnesses and even spoke to some of the witnesses that are still alive, in a lot of terms they describe the thing as being ape-like, and in some cases people flat out said they think it had hair. So it's possible that the moniker Lizard Man, or whatever people were calling it, was actually misleading, and it could have been perhaps a Bigfoot that lived in the swamp that was wet, or maybe had a skin condition, or its hair was matted or covered in algae. So it's kind of strange to try to explain one cryptid using another, but it is possible that it was simply a Bigfoot, and by the locals just called it the Lizard Man. So there's a lot of different things that it could be.
So my question to you is, in regards to the comparison between the Lizard Man and the creature of Boggy Creek, why is it many times that these crypto creatures that are unidentified have humanoid factions about them? Does that strike you as odd? Because it strikes me as odd.
Yeah, that they're man-like?
Yeah, that they have, humanoid qualities and characteristics about them. Do you have any speculation as to why that might be? Because to me, it's just odd. Like, in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking, like, what are people doing, like, trying to crossbreed with lizards or something? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Right. I mean, it is a stretch. Like I say, definitely with any sort of a reptilian humanoid hybrid of any sort, biology is not going to support that. And certainly it seems much more probable that Bigfoot is some sort of an ape that, has developed to stand upright and has a more human-like foot. That, seems to make much more sense than a lizard man, so to speak. But, you do find that a lot of these creatures, a lot of cryptids, have a certain humanoid quality. And, some other cases like, the Dover demon, the Thetis lake monster. These other things are, walk on two legs and have arms and a head like we have. And I think it makes it almost more spooky and more shocking, because, we perceive them to have some sort of intelligence by virtue of their man-like bodies. It's truly fascinating. And I mean, of course, you do have a lot of cryptids, lake monsters and chupacabra and things like this that aren't so much man-like. But I guess I tend to gravitate towards the ones that are more man-like. It just seems all the more spooky.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, with you, you've kind of been down there and you've done your ground research, and you've interviewed people, and I'm sure you've been into the swamps. Do you have like any kind of funny close call stories or anything with your exploration? Doing these things and writing the books that you've wrote.
Well, I mean, depending on how you define close calls, I've certainly been out there and rolled the canoe over some rather large alligators that, most of the time you're in the swamp and these, those creatures don't want anything to do with you. They're hiding under the water, or you never see them. But there's been occasion when I've happened up or surprised a large alligator, in which, there's been a few times when I just kind of keep my hands more inside the canoe. But as far as sightings of a creature, unfortunately, I can't say that I've ever seen anything that I could definitively say is an unknown creature, a Bigfoot or whatever. I've not had any sightings. I have heard some very strange vocalizations, howls, things like that I'm at a loss to explain. I certainly am fairly, experienced. I mean, like I said, I was hunting with my father since I could walk, so I've heard every kind of coyote and owl and fox and all kinds of creatures, and there are all those occasions in which you hear a strange howl that sends a chill up your spine, and you're just not sure what to make of it. So that's about, I suppose, as close as I've come, but I still, put myself out there into these environments and just to see what I can find.
I gotta tell you, I got deep respect for you, Lyle, because, I go into dark houses and walk around in the dark and worry about like floors falling through and mold and rats and stuff like that. I could not do what you do, and the alligators and snakes and nope, it's not meant for me at all. Anything like this, because I'm telling you, like it wouldn't even take like a lizard man to come across my path. It could just be a snake and I'd be done.
Yeah, and sometimes I'd rather come across something else other than a poisonous snake. I'm not big on that, but it's all about going in prepared. Taking the right clothing, survival gear, and knowing what you're doing when you're in the woods. But it certainly is something that kind of not just anybody can plunge in and just go into the swamp. I mean, whereas ghost hunting is great because it's, there's a lot more closer locations. I mean, you can find a haunted building in your own town. With a swamp, you typically can have to, go to a more remote area. But I think that's an appeal to me because I like to be out in remote areas and things like that. So this affords me that opportunity. But I had, when I was younger, I went to various haunted houses and used to go to cemeteries, and I was very interested in ghosts, and so there's definitely a thrill in all of this, all of pursuing and hunting these sort of mysteries.
Yeah, and it definitely is, and it's definitely a calling. But to me, one thing that I think a lot of people in the paranormal field, they miss a beat on is, when you're talking about spirits and you're talking about cryptozoology and you're talking about UFOology, you're talking all about the paranormal field. The paranormal field doesn't all just fall under spirits or cryptozoology or UFOs. It's all of it together. And, if we all knew the answers, we wouldn't be doing what we were doing. And you never know. It might all be tied in some weird way and we just not realize it.
Right. I mean, yeah, the basic definition. I don't consider myself a paranormal researcher, but ultimately I am, because paranormal is something you can't define with normal definitions, and therefore all these things fall into, quote unquote paranormal, which has kind of come into vogue lately. I didn't really even know that word long ago when I was reading books on the Bermuda Triangle or the Loch Ness and things. I didn't know that word or didn't pay attention to it, but I was still interested in all those subjects, and it's kind of cool that so many people are interested in these things now. And I've been at a lot of paranormal conferences and things. I'm doing my cryptozoology talk, but I got a lot of people who come up and say, I've been investigating ghosts, but I'd love to do some cryptozoology. Where would you recommend I go, and how would I, what would I need to go in the woods? So it's cool that people just have a cross interest, I guess, in this stuff.
Yeah, and I think the interest is a good thing, to expand the horizon of just what's standard, what's the word I'm looking for, mainstream media, wants you to think encompasses the paranormal field, because it's not all just ghosts and spirits. And, with anything, I think it's great people are coming up to you, but, the same thing I tell people who want to get into, spirits and looking for ghosts, quote unquote, and everything else, don't go by yourself. Go with somebody that has some experience, especially, don't go into the woods if you don't know what you're doing, because that'd be like sending somebody like me into the woods by myself. I'd be dead. I couldn't do it. I'm going to tell you right now, I'd need somebody with, guns and swords or something with me, because I wouldn't be able to handle it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, there are a lot of dangers. I mean, and that's the best advice is whatever you're getting into is just to try to hook up with an experienced team or some other people that have already been doing it, because chances are somebody had already jumped in, and then, you can pass on the knowledge and make sure people are safe when they're doing these types of things, because safety, from whether it is an old house and there's rotted boards, or whether you're tromping through the swamp, you might need some snake boots or something, or some survival kit. I mean, you definitely can't just go blindly into these type of things.
Yeah, and I know, like, here, especially in Georgia, we've had a couple of investigations, especially client-based investigations, that were either next to a river or something like that. And I am a Georgia girl. I'm not completely naive to the dangers of what's in the woods and around rivers. And the first thing I was like, I got to go get some snake boots, y'all, because I'm not going to be tracking around near a river and not have no snake boots on. And everybody made fun of me, and I'm just like, when your butt gets bit, it's going to be you, not me. I'm just saying.
That's right. Water moccasins, cottonmouths, love water, and they move around at night as well. So it's always better to be safe than sorry, as the old cliche goes.
Yeah, I've always been the one to say, like, it's not the paranormal stuff that I'm investigating that scares me. It's like the living, the real life things, everyday things people come in contact with. That's what scares me.
You have more of a chance of encountering that than the odd spirit or Bigfoot that you may encounter. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. So what types of things, do you kind of have going on in the near future, going on for you right now?
Well, speaking of the Lizard Man, I did several episodes of Monsters and Mysteries in America, which airs on the Destination America channel, and those are starting to air. There is a Lizard Man episode coming up on January the 19th. And I've also been on several that have already run, the Lake Worth Monster segment, and I think I'm on the Hellhounds episode. So people can definitely check me out on Monsters and Mysteries in America. Let's see what else. I'm trying to nail down the subject for my third book, so I'm getting together ideas on that. So trying to keep up with the books. The books have been quite successful and have I guess been a stepping stone to doing the TV stuff and all that. So definitely trying to keep on a roll with that. And so just the same old things, just getting out there, doing some research, interviewing people. It seems like, at least every other day I'm getting some good reports and following up on some really exciting sightings and things like that. So.
Well, speaking of sightings, what's your next quote-unquote monster you plan on researching and tracking down? Do you have, any direction that you're currently kind of focusing on?
Well, I think I may do something more comprehensive, whereas the Beast of Boggy Creek and Lizard Man have kind of focused on a more narrow, creature and sightings in one area. I think I'm going to do something that encompasses more across the whole, southern U.S. or something, all the places where I've been, and kind of, tie these stories together. Because one thing, like with Bigfoot, for example, I found that if you follow a lot of waterways, here in Texas, the Red River, or if you look at various swamps, I've been out to Okefenokee Swamp out there in Georgia. It's in central Georgia. It's a huge swamp, and just an amazing place. And I see sort of this the geographical hotspots and the way these creatures travel back and forth across these places. So I think I'm going to do something that's is themed around the geography of things and putting together then more of a vast array of sightings. So I think the next book will be something along those lines.
Yeah, and speaking of the Okefenokee Swamp, when you said that, it reminded me, when I was a kid, there's this guy named Okefenokee Joe, and he'd come around with his, snakes and everything else like that, and he'd always talk about the swamp. here in Georgia, the Okefenokee Swamp, and he'd always say, you know, there's like nobody in there, and there's hardly anybody. He'd talk about how desolate of a place it is, you know, and it just, to this day, it always leaves open, you know, his words of wisdom and the things he talked about the swamp definitely leaves open the possibility for me that creatures of this nature could exist in areas like this completely undetected.
Yeah, I mean, that is a huge chunk of land. I mean, if you drive from, like, the east side of the swamp, you have to go around, all around the bottom, all the way to the west. I mean, it's a long, long, long drive. And, you know, it's just a huge chunk of land. And, of course, you know, there's a lot of strange things that have been reported in there over the years. It was kind of a famous case back in the 1800s in which a party of, you know, settlers, basically, in the 1800s, were attacked by some sort of Bigfoot-like creature and ended up chasing it with guns into the swamp. And it's one of the kind of classic Bigfoot tales. And I think I've even heard something people call the pig man being sighted down there. So those are things that I've kind of been in the process of following up on, and certainly intriguing. I love swamps, and at one point I'll definitely do a swamp-themed book and talk about these others, because I've been to a lot of these swamps, like Okefenokee and Honey Island Swamp, all these swamps that have, you know, sightings associated with them. So good stuff.
Yeah, it definitely is good stuff. Well, I do want to comment on your website one more time and have it up on the screen for those viewers that are watching. It is www.lyleblackburn.com. On the website, you can check out all about Lyle, all about the works that he does, and also you can buy the books. The first one is The Beast of Boggy Creek, which is a very interesting book, and then his newest one is The Lizard Man, a true story of the Bishopville Monster. And both of them are absolutely awesome books that you should definitely check out. And, you know, Lyle, next thing that you get, the next monster you decide to tackle, you let me know, and I can definitely have you on to talk about your next exciting journey, because I think it's great.
Oh, you bet. I appreciate you.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for being on, Lyle, and I do want to take a minute. Minute. You can tell I haven't done this in like 3 weeks, right? Next week on Paranormal Minds, I will have author Judica Isle. She will be on with me talking about her various works as well. Please tune in next Tuesday right here, same time, same place, and everyone have a great week. And don't forget to head over to Pin 2 or to stay here for what follows after. You guys have a great one. I'm your host, Shannon Ray, and once again, thank you, Lyle Blackburn, for being on. His website is on one more time. Thank you, Lyle.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
All right, you guys have a great one.